years, it has become a sporting phenomenon.
Stamped into the sporting calendar as a must-see event.
It has created heroes.
This is the moment for Long. He's picked it.
It's one of the best concepts around, and it's successful.
Moments of glory.
There are scenes of joy on this field.
Moments of pain.
Look at Paul Wellens out there.
There's no other game like it.
And controversy.
And how about this for a decision? No try.
I don't think I would like to finish the season in any other way.
It has changed the landscape of rugby league forever.
Match in England at the moment.
Last game of season. Last game of season, it's super special.
You're all Army rugby players, but who are you expecting to win today?
Bradford.
The Tetley's Super League Grand Final 2003 was to be the biggest yet. A magnificent reward for the fans and the players, who'd enjoyed the highs and endured the lows of a long, demanding season.
To some people it's the hair on the back of the neck, to some people it's the butterflies and feeling a bit sick, but it may be both. To some people it's just you know, an awesome feeling.
It's just the biggest game of the year when it comes to it. I think just as the week progresses, people you see in the street start talking about it, and you know, it just builds up to a massive fever pitch, and then you know, obviously walking out at Old Trafford brings the hairs up on your neck, and you know, a fantastic occasion.
Bradford's march to the grand final has been steady but impressive. Along the way, they've beaten arch rivals Leeds 5 times, including the playoff encounter which earned them their place in this year's final. Wigan have seemed almost unstoppable since their coach Stuart Raper left to be replaced by Mike Gregory. They finished 3rd behind Leeds, but pushed out their rivals for the last grand final berth with this dramatic win. There's little doubt, though, both sides deserved their Old Trafford date, and they expected to contest a sporting event with unrivalled passion. In 6 seasons, the grand final has well and truly invaded the sports lover's psyche. October just wouldn't be the same without it, and it all began with a vision.
I think it arose out of a belief amongst Super League clubs, and particularly the board at the time, that the season really needed to come to a climactic end rather than have a situation where it might peter out if a club, as Bradford were in, I think, 97, miles ahead of the competition with games to play.
When the decision was taken to move to the summer and introduce the Super League, that was when I thought it was the time to make a completely fresh start and introduce the playoff system and the grand final, and I made the suggestion to a number of people, anybody who cared to listen. I batted and had a go. It wasn't adopted at that time. But of course, you know, after 2 years, the decision was taken and I was delighted.
Not everyone agreed. Rugby League had just taken the radical step of abandoning the mud, ice and snow of winter to move to summer. The grand final concept would be another radical change.
I didn't like the idea. I was a traditionalist. I believed that in any league competition, the side finishing top of that league were entitled to be called the champions. But people like Chris Casely and Maurice Lindsay in particular made compelling arguments for the new format. Our own rugby league producer, Neville Smith, who'd seen it work so well in Australia, he came up with the idea of a Saturday night game under floodlights in the north of England. They knew their sport. They knew that rugby league, its fans, would embrace the new concept, and they were right, and I was wrong.
I could hear people, certainly in the 12 clubs, thinking this might be a great idea. What was a little more difficult was to get them to accept that we wouldn't be doing it on Sunday afternoon.
I believe floodlit sport is a great theatre for television and for spectators. And one-day cricket was introduced with that concept. It was a wonderful, great success. And all our matches, anyway, were always under lights during the season, Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights. And so it just seemed to me a natural thing to put the grand final under lights.
And even I was a bit reluctant to go wholeheartedly with it. And then we talked about how games under floodlights seem to have more intensity, more excitement, more drama. The crowd are in the shadows, the athletes are in the spotlight, and it was like a stage show. And I thought, yeah, we'll risk it.
The decision was made. Rugby League's flagship competition would now culminate in a playoff series with a grand final at Old Trafford. Reaction from those who would be most affected was mixed at first.
I suppose I was very sceptical, and I suppose I was, well, why are we copying the Australians again? And that's my initial thoughts. And then when I thought about it logically, I probably would have thought, well, it generates a little bit more interest at the end of the season, and you know, as long as you come to terms with the fact that, you know, whilst you may finish top or second, there's still everything to play for. Yeah, I soon came to terms with it because the agenda we were given. Yeah.
I think the concept's really good, and don't get me wrong, it took some getting used to, but in the end, I think it's turned out fabulous.
The players were convinced, the broadcasters were convinced, but would the paying public be as easy to win over?
It was a gamble whether people would take to it or not. I mean, there were a lot of precedents for sports sorting out their eventual winner by doing it that way, so it wasn't a step into the unknown. The question whether the fans would take to it or not was the one that needed to be answered.
The only test of your success in this game is the response by the public. They're too aware, too educated, too sophisticated, and available to them so much choice in sport that they'll only buy what's worthwhile. And gradually we saw these tickets sales building up through June, July, August, September, and then as we got to the playoffs in early September, terrific influx, and obviously supplemented by the teams who were expected to be successful. Their fans queuing in droves.
It was hard, the first one, and I think I made myself a bit of a pain with the Super League staff, ringing every day, every other day certainly, trying to find out how many tickets we sold for the first grand final, and being so desperate that it wasn't a flop, because so many people, I think, would have said, well, I told you so, it will never work. And so we worked terrifically hard to get that first one off the ground.
We decided we wouldn't have any chairman leading out the sides. We thought the days of the chairman being a temporary athlete for the day was not necessary. We'd leave that to the Challenge Cup final. This was a day for the athletes, the end of their season. So just the coach led out the teams. So the whole thing was a drama.
Wet conditions, the kicking game will be so important.
That night I can just remember coming out, you know, the crowd. It was raining, I think, that night. The weather wasn't too good, but the crowds turned out, and it was a great atmosphere.
The atmosphere was tremendous, and that made the day really. But we were proud to be involved in the first one as well, and obviously we wanted to win the first one because you can't take that away from us.
Off we go!
It was just atmosphere-wise the best thing I've experienced. Hairs on the back of your neck stood up even when you walked out for the warm-up.
Dennis has cut them open up the middle. Beautiful run from Dennis. He bounces off one challenge, keeps on going and hangs on. The ball should have maybe been fed out wide to Rivette. Leads though still aren't done. This is Sheridan. Sheridan to Blackmore. Blackmore with the first try of the grand final.
We thought we'd got something, and we played really well in the first half, and we took the game to Wigan, and we were the better team by a distance.
Richie Blackmore, the Kiwi, has come up with the first 4-pointer. Robinson, what a try!
I can just remember, you know, getting the ball on the right hand side from dummy half, and just going on my crossfield runs, and just really just to try and find space. And you know, I've watched the video numerous times, and there didn't seem to be any space. He's picked on two front rowers, and with his pace, it's very difficult to handle. And I was just outside of those two, and I tried to get back, and with my pace, I just couldn't quite get to him.
Desperate times for these two sides.
I seem to remember us winning and 2 or 3 minutes left and being able to kick a goal which virtually sealed it for us, which was a massive relief, and you could see what it meant to the players. I believe that was probably my last opportunity to win a Super League ring, and I was absolutely gutted. I don't think I've ever felt as bad. There's pictures all over the Wigan Stadium lifting that trophy, and it is something special. It's just definitely classic, just as memorable as lifting a Challenge Cup trophy.
I think after that first game, everybody realised that it was something special, and everybody wanted to be part of it.
It was wonderful. I couldn't wait to get to the Sunday newspapers, because for big games like that you get the London feature writers coming up. It's a once-a-year visit. Their descriptions of the whole night's event was heartening.
I think after the first one there was a bit of relief, because we could have fallen on our faces. It might not have worked. People might have said, "Oh, I can't be bothered. The champions are the people who finish top of the league, and it's always been thus, and why are we bothering to change it?" But I'll say one thing for the rugby league supporter, that they are, with some limited exceptions, prepared to at least give it a go.
On a cold, wet night in October 1998, Rugby League had witnessed a revolution. 43,500 people had watched the birth of a phenomenon. The visionaries had been vindicated. But would it? Could it get better? The answer was to come 12 months later. 1998 had been a triumph. They'd banked on getting 30,000 people into Old Trafford. They got more than 40,000. Rugby League had seen nothing like it. But the playoff system wasn't radically new to league lovers here.
It wasn't quite that radical in terms of the history of Rugby League. All the time when we had one division and teams couldn't play each other home and away because there were too many of them, the championship was decided by a playoff series at the end of the season. So it wasn't such a weird thing for Rugby League as it would be, say, for soccer if you were to introduce a playoff system there. And also, people in this country would be well aware that that was the way they did it in Australia. But not just in Australian Rugby League, all major sports in Australia have a playoff series at the end. All major sports in America. It's just not that unusual in terms of world sport.
Indeed, the Australians had always used the playoff format with great success. A full house of more than 80,000 turned up this year to see Penrith beat Sydney City Roosters. And back when Great Britain last won the World Cup, playoffs had been an integral part of the game here. The man who scored the winning try in that game was also the last captain to lift the championship trophy under a playoff system.
Hello, Nev. Can you hear me?
Mike Stevenson is known to this generation of league lovers as the controversial voice behind the mic for Sky Sports. But in 1973, he captained Dewsbury through playoffs to win the championship title.
I think I would rather have played under this system because of the fact that in the system that we played under, if you lost the game, that was it. You were finished. I think that it's a just reward for the system now, that if you finish first and second, at least you have another bite at the cherry. I think that is perfectly right. The Australians got it right many, many years ago, and I'm glad that we've copied them.
Well, this to me combines the best characteristics of a league system and a knockout system. People say, well, it's like cup rugby at the end of the season. Well, actually, it's better than that, or worse than that if you're on the receiving end of it. Because if you're in a cup and you get knocked out, what you're losing is what you've invested in the previous rounds of that cup. Could be 2, 3, maximum of 4 rounds you could have got through. In the Super League playoffs, it's your whole season's work that's on the line.
The grand final of 1998 had whet the appetite. Now the game was hungry for more. Could this next one, though, live up to expectations? Was the first just a flash in the pan? We were about to find out.
Come the grand final day, I remember sat at the club waiting to go on the coach, and I could sense something special was going to happen that day.
Every fan in the stadium sees both teams at once as you walk out together, so the energy erupts, or the energy flows down off the terraces and just smothers you on the field, and you go from this level of excitement to that level of excitement.
Henry Paul went through from the scrum. Sonny Nicol chased him all the way, but just couldn't catch him, and they went 6 points clear, or 6-2 up, something like that.
and they give us a leg up. And the next half, we were splitting them all over the, all over the field for the first 20 minutes, and there was something about the crack.
St Helens are in possession with Long on to Martin. He gives it a bit of width and finds Aitchison. Poor ball, picked up by Withers. Withers is on his way to the line. Chris Smith is the ball back inside to Price. Leo Price on his 18th birthday.
All I remember was going to make a tackle. I can't even remember who it was. But the ball come up, I tried to get it with my hand, and I missed it. So then I just played on, put Leon away, and he scored the try. And then it was just waiting for that decision.
I knew straight away that Stuart would hand that decision over to me to make the call on that one.
Now, you probably were sure then, but watching the replays, this is where doubt probably would have set in for most people.
No doubt. I've not seen it for a few years, but I'm absolutely as convinced now as I was then that Michael Withers just got his fingertip to it and it was all done.
No try!
I'm really flat about that. Yeah, I couldn't make the call. Every person in the stadium were looking at the only person that knows if he touched the ball or not was Michael Withers. To this day, I don't think I touched the ball, or I didn't feel it.
I think it was definitely a turning point. I thought he did touch it.
If that tries allowed to stand, we win the game. The things I've learnt subsequently as a head coach is that I'm pretty confident the boys go on and defend that lead. I can't see Saints getting back into it, but they found every reason to do that when that was disallowed, and it was Kevin Iroh that scored in the corner.
It's with Cunningham. It's now with Long. Wide it goes to Aitchison, he must score! Iroh will score!
Kevin's got a funny knack of, when he was playing, he could always pull out the big performances in the big games, and that was no exception that day. And the try that he scored at the end was just typified what Kevin's all about.
We felt we had the game. I mean, we were so dominant throughout most of the game. And we did. We had so many opportunities and chances, and we just blew them.
And St Helens are the 1999 champions.
I don't know what was going on, but I think I did an interview after the game and I was just rambling on.
I can't imagine you feeling anything but pleasure now.
Oh, it's absolutely simple. Fans have been absolutely great. They got behind us. Bradford outnumbered us, but they've made more noise than Bradford, and we're just glad to do it for them.
Well, congratulations.
I was so happy that we'd won the trophy.
A victory for Saints and Super League. It got bigger and better.
And I truly believe that those changes, that concept, actually rescued rugby league from what was rather a pretty boring period in its history. It injected something new. It gave everyone a chance to live right through to the end of the season, and the greatest statement that was ever made was actually made by the then coach of Rubber Bulls, when he said, well, let's not forget that the most important game any team will play now is their last game of the season. And when you think about it in Super League, that's so true.
Rugby League's always known how to put on a good show. The Challenge Cup final at Wembley has been one of sport's great days out for years and years. Always played in the spring, always seemed to be under blue skies, and when the Challenge Cup goes back to Wembley, it will be huge again. But what the grand final has done is given Rugby League another great showpiece. It's in the heartland of the sport. It's under floodlights. It's played at a marvellous stadium up there. The fans love it. They've turned out in growing numbers year on year, and it's a marvellous promotion for the sport. The crowds are there, the atmosphere's there, and it's worked wonderfully for television.
After just 2 years, the grand final at the Old Trafford Theatre of Dreams
had worked, defying all the old traditions. It seems it was a formula that was exactly what the game needed.
I believed in it at the time, and when you're playing in a game like we did at Old Trafford, fantastic atmosphere, then I think as soon as we walked out on the field there, you knew that it was something special, and that Rugby League had really taken the game to another level internationally and throughout the country.
You get the satisfaction that you've worked for. You know, you work the whole season. You work really hard, and you play the games, which you carry injuries through a season. And I think just to get to the grand final at the end, it just makes it all worthwhile.
Playoffs, another instant excitement for the fans, because it's winner take all, loser pack your bags in most cases. So that sudden death aspect, instant result aspect, really gets people excited and interested. And I think it's really is one of the great competitions in British sport.
The Old Trafford Grand Final gamble was paying off. Before, there was a sense that something was missing. It needed that something extra to raise it to new heights.
I think perhaps it was Wigan's dominance that made such a strong case for a playoff series and a grand final when the decision was actually made to do that. The fact that you could visualise one team running away with it made it a very strong case for doing it in a different way. Actually, there again, people's memories play a few tricks, because some of those contests when Wigan won the championship all the time were very, very close and went down to the last game of the season. But of course, you couldn't guarantee that.
There was, of course, the old Premiership competition for the teams that had finished in the first 8 positions, but that was almost regarded as a light-hearted, anticlimactic coda to the season.
We'd had a Premiership final, which was very much second fiddle to the Challenge Cup final at the end of the season, and that had really faded away into something of obscurity. So it was a question of building from that point and getting something that was far more important than that, but that couldn't be achieved overnight. That had to be something that sold itself as it went on from season to season, and not just to the fans of the two teams involved, but also to the supporters of Rugby League generally, in the same way that they would go to a Challenge Cup final. They would also go to the Super League Grand Final, regardless of who was in it. And that, if you notice, is starting to happen at Old Trafford now.
With the grand final now deciding the ultimate champions, the definitive game was played in the final 80 minutes of the season, and you didn't have to finish top to be in with a chance.
If you were saying, probably the team what finished top most, I think it's Bradford, but with the playoff situation and getting to the Old Trafford, gives us a chance to win it, and we have done twice out of the 3 by finished second.
I think it's given more teams a spur, a push to be able to achieve something. If you look at the way London and Warrington have improved this year, then you see that they've got something to play for all the way through. And it used to be the Premiership, but did that really mean that much? It was a good competition, but it was the end of the year and performances tended to dip a little bit, whereas now performances go to another level. And I think that's what it's done. It's given all the teams in the competition something to really aim for.
And if the format favoured anyone, it favoured the brave. One team had already stamped its authority on Super League. It was about to do the same with the grand final. If ever there was a game that could put bums on seats, this was it.
There's a mixed emotions, It was obviously going to be my last game for Wigan in the final. It would have been nice to, to have ended it in, with a win.
I had the feeling that I didn't want to lose. I'd had the feeling of winning, so no way did I want to go back and go through pain of losing.
Wellens in quickly at dummy half, joint fumbles, regathers, gets the ball away to Hoppy. Hoppy scores the first try. I'm gonna see ya. I wanna meet ya. Farrell's on the charge. Oh, try Farrell. Andy Farrell gets Wigan level. Drop goal from Sculthorpe. Sculthorpe gets the one-pointer.
This is going to be a classic.
Joint will score for Saints. He'll go to the screen on this.
I think I dove over from dummy half as a call, but what sticks out in my mind is the actual second try I scored.
I'm gonna win ya. I'll get ya.
I think Wigan were on the comeback and Sean Long broke through and I was on the inside, and
you know, that was a really decisive try, which probably got us well on the way to winning the grand final.
It is Wigan that have to play the catch-up football.
And they might do here with Chester. Chester's got Hodgson. Hodgson's away from Joint. And Hodgson's going to go in and score. Peters. Tony Smith. They've got men on the overlap out wide. Farrell! Farrell, back it goes. Tony Smith. Oh, Wigan are back. Wigan are back in the shout.
That was the time where the nerves did that, you know, start jangling really, because you know, we'd built up, you know, a fairly healthy lead in a final anyway, and you know, Wigan showed their never say die attitude and bounced straight back.
Joint, here is Sullivan. Bit of open space for Sullivan. Was quickly closed down on. He's rolled him into touch.
The turning point in 2000 was probably when Sullivan got dragged into touch, and they got a penalty lead, and we worked our way up and scored the next set of 6, and really kicked away to a lead.
It's got 2 points.
I was talking to Tony Smith after the game, and Tony Smith said if he hadn't got that kick, he thought they'd have come back and won. So, you know, that was probably a turning point in the game.
And Stankovic! Sullivan's there! They're going to finish! They're going to finish with a try! Yonkers gets the try! St Helens are the champions! Cue the celebrations!
It's just a special feeling, you know, to win a grand final. You've played, well, you've trained for 12 months of the year, and it's you know, your last 80 minutes of the season, and you just sing, dance, scream, you know, everything. There's people who've been around you all season who you know, who are special to you. You know, your family's in the stand. It's you know, it's fantastic.
That's gut-wrenching stuff. And Perolini and Robinson, they will be teammates at Sale next year.
It was an emotional time. Obviously, you know, we'd both been part of successful teams. You know, we had a really good association with the clubs and really enjoyed ourselves. So for that to be our last game was, you know, was a sad time. And you know, we just had to pray and just thank God for, you know, for what we've been part of.
It's the last game, and you're left frustrated for a whole off-season, so it was disappointing.
People have questioned our defence this season. We've just defended our Super League crown. So, see you later.
Pure drama, without a doubt. Now, anticipation of the biggest game of the season sees demand for tickets reach fever pitch even before both the finalists are known.
It's a big job, innit, you know. It's like going to Wembley, isn't it?
Awesome, it always is, whoever plays, but being a Bulls fan, you know, just can't wait for the day.
I've been looking for it to, well, for at least 2 years when I missed out last time. Yeah, glad to go back and see what happens.
Oh, it's electric, it's really good.
The grand final is what it's all about. It's what you play for. You know, when you're a kid, you dream about winning the first grade grand final on TV around, you know, it's around the world. But from a spectator, it's the package. You get great entertainment. The atmosphere is great. Outside the ground is very good as well. I noticed that. And just to be part of a spectacle, really.
Now, if you look at the players that lose this grand final, they're on their knees in tears, and the other team are so jubilant because it's a whole year's work. And the fact that it's played at Old Trafford underlines is an added dimension, but it means everything.
A spectacle, undoubtedly, a source of much-needed revenue, certainly, but the other payoff from the playoffs is priceless. It's seen a levelling of the playing field to the point where it's impossible to predict who will win and who will lose.
There's been a levelling up in the standard of the lesser teams in Super League, if you might call them that. There's also been, of course, a bit of a levelling down of the top teams because of the salary cap and the 2020 rule and various other measures which quite rightly been brought in to stop the strong getting even stronger.
Since the point that we turned fully professional, we are getting better athletes in our sport. And I think the fact that we're getting very, very close to having all the teams very, very competitive, this has been by far the best season.
The Super League Grand Finals had a huge impact on the development of players internationally wise and will long term. You know, I think one of the biggest
one of the great strengths of English sport is the tradition, because it's gone a lot longer than Australian sport. But one of the negatives is the lack of direction sometimes, because of the tradition, is to change things. And the Rugby League should be applauded, because what they've changed is developed the game to another level, fan-wise, player-wise. And this concept's here to stay. It's one of the best concepts around, and it's successful.
It used to be fought out by 2 or 3 teams. Now it isn't. Now every club has surprised opponents by beating them. We were beaten at home by Widnes. London came here and beat us. We went to Bradford and beat Bradford. So anything is possible.
The possible had become the incredible. By the time grand final number 4 came around, there was a sense that something extraordinary was about to unfold.
Champions 2001.
It'll be a very proud moment for me when I look back on my playing career, you know, with my grandchildren and stuff. I can say I've done it, you know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone else will do it, but if not, you know, I can boast about it.
it's a far cry from the cold, dark old days of rugby league, when you'd be mad to go to a game without your gloves and your scarf. Then, of course, came rugby league's revolution. OK, so the grand final is a great success, but to tell its full story, you have to go back not to 1998, but to 1995.
95, and the seeds of an idea are sown. At an historic meeting at Central Park, Rugby League's club chairman vote to create Super League.
The chairman of the Rugby Football League clubs unanimously agreed today to the formation of a new Super League.
I think when we had the great reformation of the game in 1995, when prior to that we'd had 16 teams in Division 1 and then everyone else in Division 2, almost an equal split of the membership in those days, when the money came along to restructure the game, a lot of people, not just me, had the idea that we would try and emulate the FA Premier League, which was going through something similar at the time, and perhaps cut down the old Division 1, which played so many games it was probably far too many, and also spread the talent out too thinly. And we thought we'd have a league of 12, and that would, we thought, improve quality. Now that went on, as everyone knows, a very ferocious debate, because it meant that 4 teams wouldn't be remaining in Division 1, but everyone clung to the belief that the 12 teams in Super League would provide excellence that we'd never seen before, and I firmly believe that has happened.
The first side effect then, the creation of parity among the clubs. Of course, the one everyone wanted to emulate was Wigan. In the 10 years between 1987 and 1997, they'd won 35 trophies, an awesome haul by any standards. Wigan may have had to fight for their wins on many occasions, but the fact that they were training full-time meant they could usually edge out the part-timers when it came to the crunch.
There was a perception at the time that Wigan was massively dominant, no other sides competed with them, but that wasn't always the case. Wigan just won a lot of the big games and managed to scrape through in the finals. I remember one season they played against St Helens 6 times. Wigan won 3 of those matches and St Helens 3, but it was the bigger matches, the Challenge Cup final and the match to decide the league title, that went Wigan's way, and hence they were seen as the most dominant side. With the switch to summer rugby, I think there was obviously more of a chance for the sides to catch up. I think that maybe Wigan lost 1 or 2 of their star players, and I think their own financial troubles didn't help as well.
Before he took up residence on the touchlines of Super League, Phil Clark was very much a fixture on the playing fields themselves. Before Super League, Phil, Great Britain and Wigan captain, epitomised the modern-day player. Athletic, intelligent and articulate. He looked more like an athlete than the bruisers of old. These days, that athleticism is part of the fabric of the majority of Super League players.
There were a lot of players playing, even when the game was played in winter, who were tremendous athletes. I'll take one example of Andy Goodway, who'd be as fit as any player currently in the Great Britain squad, and have some pretty good rugby skills as well. But I think there have been an awareness now amongst more younger players, and you do have to start very young if you want to become strong enough and fast enough to play in a modern-day Super League. More and more of those players are now doing that and adapting to the pace with which the game's gone. Obviously, when the game goes from a winter sport to a summer sport, most importantly, the surface becomes a bit harder. In that case, you're able to run a little bit faster, and the whole game is speeded up as a result of it. I'd say the standards have probably risen by about 20%, if that's a fair assessment. Each year, we talk about our sportsmen as athletes in the game of rugby league, and in athletics, personal bests and world records are broken every year. As the standard gets harder, higher, everyone becomes faster and stronger, and that's what we've seen in rugby league. I think also we've seen an increase in the skill level now with some of the players, and it's so positive for the future of rugby league in this country.
Off the playing fields, the rewards have been enormous. The Rugby League had recognised that the development of the game had to go hand in hand with developments in facilities. Huddersfield led the way with moving from Fartown to the McAlpine Stadium. At Widnes, the old Norton Park was bulldozed. In its place now are the shiny facilities of the Halton Stadium. The out with the old and in with the new was welcomed, but there was also a sadness. The final days of Central Park, for example, were poignant and tearful.
There'll be a lot more tears from a lot of other spectators. Just unbelievable that it should finish in such a dramatic way. But what a way to finish it. Wigan and St Helens.
Very sad. Came here 40 years ago with my dad. Brought my son. He plays the game. Sad day.
I think I'll be very emotional.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
So I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck already. It's going to be a sad day, but we've got to move on. It's progress and move down to the new JJB Stadium. So hopefully, we shall enjoy it down there.
Yes, in the place of Central Park, a state-of-the-art stadium that has facilities second to none. Indoor food kiosks, clean, warm lavatories and corporate facilities that have attracted more spectators and sponsorship.
It wasn't a lot of fun to play at some of those old grounds. People might have a nostalgic memory of playing in the winter time when it was snowing and you were knee-deep in mud. But to be honest, it wasn't really a lot of fun. I think we're kidding ourselves. It can't have been a lot of the fun for the fans to stand up there in the freezing cold, and it's so much better now that we've got facilities that people can go and enjoy.
And not just at the JJB. Hull FC left their spiritual home of the Boulevard. They're now settled in the Kingston Communications Stadium. And next season, Warrington take up residence at the brand new Halliwell Jones Stadium. And aside from the facilities, there's the entertainment. Even before a ball has been kicked, there are dances to be danced, songs to be sung, and a whole myriad of other events for all ages. But perhaps the most important side effect of the switch to summer and full-time professionalism has been the investment in youth. The England Academy side, under the tutelage of Wigan coach Mike Gregory, shocked the world-dominating Australians by beating their much-lauded schoolboys. The future in Britain now is not only bright, it's young.
I think that Rugby League is very grateful to the funding that Sport England have provided, and that is really what's helping now. Some exciting development taking place. The Director of Coach Education, Rainsworth's doing a great job in disseminating the messages that we need to get to all the junior coaches, because it's at that level that we need to get in people developing the right skills and playing with the right tactics and strategy. That's all now coming through, but it will take time, and as we get more supportive of that, then the future's very bright for Rugby League in this country.
At its inception, there were clan against clan, there were scabbards drawn, there were people being killed in dark alleyways. You looked at the proposed mergers that didn't quite come off, and the turmoil that they'll never catch on this summer rugby. Winter rugby's for me, as you sat there in -3 with the 2,000 crowds that we were playing at Odsall, certainly for the Bradford Bulls, and I think for the game. We've got such a fantastic product, and it's got to be the fact that we stuck our necks out, as Rugby League always does. But don't forget, we're at the forefront of making brave decisions in Rugby League, and have had to be for 110 years. And we made another brave decision. Again, it's proven right, because as a spectacle, there is no equal for me, and I watch all sports. I'm a fan of all sports. As a spectacle, Super League 8's been not only the best yet, but it's just pure drama, isn't it?
All great dramas need a stage. Time for Curtain Up at the Theatre of Dreams.
I said to the players, I remember saying to them, I said, let's enjoy the moment too, it's really important. And I thought with me losing that first, I had to wave the crowd and look like I was composing it, that was important.
And here come the Bulls with Withers. Withers wide, it goes to Naylor. It's opened up for Naylor. Naylor is in. Bradford off to a wonderful start.
It was an amazing game, drama-filled game, controversial game. So there were you won about it, but it was still a fantastic game of rugby league.
A stop through by Costin. Wellens, it bounced off the knees.
Yeah, I just remember after he was branding Costin for a kick down the sideline, I just remember trying to dive on it, and then the next minute I was just being led from the field. Shattered my cheekbone in the eye socket, and I saw it was the biggest day of the season. Just been, just took from me like that. I felt pretty aggrieved.
I went into half-time on a personal thinking, well, I don't know how we're behind. If we pretty much dominated the first half, and then Saints came up with a couple of players that scored tries.
It was like a boxing game. We just sparred in the early rounds, and then went for a punch, and players just carried out to the letter. I mean, I was, you know, really proud of them.
He was always going to have a drop goal, have a shot at drop goal, but he was going to take it.
He's missed it! Cannot believe that! Going for the one-pointed deep end! It's wide. Wide again. Stockwell for the drop goal attempt. Wide.
I remember leading up to the drop goal, everyone was screaming, drop goal, block it, you know what I mean? In our mind, we wanted to do it, we had it done, but our legs were gone, we just couldn't get there.
It wasn't over then. I knew that, you know, it wasn't finished. There was still about 30 seconds left on the clock. We just wanted to get going back and get everyone settled back. We could carry on with the win.
I was on the sideline, then I saw that, and I was just like, probably it.
And being on the pitch in the victory ceremony, that's not a nice feeling if you're on the losing team.
It's something I never want to experience again. So I made a pact to myself, I'll have nothing but successful grand finals for the rest of my life.
All the guys come over after the game, you know, sort of give me a shoulder to cry on, so to speak. But you know, it was their big day. They've earned, you know, earned the result with a massive 80 minutes, and you know, they have every right to go out and enjoy themselves. And you know, I was grateful for them that, you know, they could win me on the Super League ring.
A classic match that set a new grand final standard. And it was witnessed by the people who mattered most. Without them, the concept would never have got off the ground.
World champions on Sky Sports in 2004.
England riding high, tore New Zealand as champions of the world.
Yes, in 2003, Old Trafford was packed to the rafters. Every ticket available, and that's a total of 65,537 was sold. It was the first rugby league event to sell out before the big day in nearly 10 years. And the capacity crowd at the ground was complemented by the record numbers of Sky viewers tuning into the grand final at home. Not even the greatest of optimists could have predicted such success.
The whole ambition was to have it as a calendar event, so that everybody booked year upon year. So they said, oh, don't forget we've got to the Super League final. And I know now people are giving up other events this day to come to this event. It's a wonderful achievement, and I'm proud of the game.
Well, I always hoped this day would come, that eventually it would establish itself so strong that it would be sold out. The touts are enjoying it as well. They're selling £15 tickets for 50 out there, so it's helping the economy of Manchester as well.
Behind the scenes, some last-minute rehearsals.
Make sure you're getting 2 lines, make sure you smile all the time. And if a camera comes in you on the pitch, just whatever, clap to it and stuff. Just enjoy it.
And more than a hint of nerves.
I have to say, I've always had butterflies because of my involvement with the administration, but there's nothing more nerve-wracking than being chairman of one of the participating sides. I mean, I've been to Wembley so many times with Wigan, but when I come to Old Trafford with this team, it's just a nerve-wracker. It really is a massive game, massive international recognition. I know everybody in Australia will be glued to it live something like 8 o'clock in the morning, so fantastic. I'm really proud of it.
We've sort of grown with it, if you like, and I think to culminate in a fantastic setup that we got today with 65,000 people here, then we're really pleased how it's gone over the last 4 years.
And finally, house lights down, stage lights up. Time for a command performance, but who'll get stage fright?
Well, the change around of the coach and everything. Mike Gregory coming into the side as a head coach. You know, we got on an 11-game roll, and the confidence was very high going into the grand final.
And out they come.
There's a lot of emotion that night. There's quite a few players who were playing the last game for Bradford, so I didn't want the focus to be there. I wanted us to play well.